Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication Podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
So welcome everyone to Animation Communication. I'm KP, and we should be on camera assuming nothing goes wrong with recording. If not, you're listening to us in the car on your way to work at 6 a.m., whatever works. This is Lauren.
Hi, I'm the Abbey Roadie, and yes, she's touching me all over my face because coronavirus totally is an issue right now.
My hands are washed, don't worry.
No, you're good.
So we're talking about the new Pixar movie Onward with my friend Cellspex, and also we're doing this big Pixar collab that we'll talk about too. Cellspex, say something. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you breathe?
Hi, I'm a person on the YouTubes. You've either heard of me or you have not. But the important thing is, I exist. That's it.
That was good. Hello, I exist.
And you matter.
And I matter. Yes, exactly. And you matter too.
Do you want to start with news, I guess?
Oh, I guess, yeah. Well, we can talk about how Bob Chapek was named the new CEO of Disney. Bob Iger just stepped down within the past week. He stepped down and as CEO of the Disney company, and has Bob Chapek, who is originally in charge of parks, he stepped up to be CEO of Disney instead. And as far as we know, Bob Iger is not actually leaving Disney. He is just stepping down from his position. I think he's going into like creative. He's still going to be in like a creative position, which personally I think it's really good to have him in that kind of position because he gets it from being able to treat creative properties with respect and stuff like that. So, but in terms of Bob Chapek, not a whole lot of people know enough about him to see what he's going to do in terms of leaving his legacy for the company. So we'll see where it goes.
Do you have any thoughts about the new CEO of Disney? Do you think Bob Iger put his dick somewhere where he wasn't supposed to?
Language. I know it's after hours, but goodness.
I don't really know anything about the guys either. I don't know if this is a plus or minus in either direction. All I know, particularly, I know that when Bob Iger took over, the parks got a lot better. That's pretty much all I know.
Do you have any more backstory you can add?
I feel like I can pull up a little bit of info on here because there's some bullet points here about Bob Chapek, because I know, in terms of at least through hearsay, some people don't like him, some people do like him. So it's kind of like, I guess it depends on what you think of how the parks are going in terms of the direction, and some people get really nitpicky about it. So
I've heard he might be Eisner 2.0, where he's just kind of expanding the empire and commercializing it and all that stuff. So,
but he's been with the company for like almost 30 years.
Yeah.
So he's been with the company for a long time. So, with his track record, it was almost inevitable that when Bob Iger was going to step down, he was going to have somebody who knows their stuff go into his position. Right. I guess what really caught everybody off guard was that he never said, oh, eventually, soon down the line, I'm going to step down and I'm going to ease somebody else into the position. This kind of came out of the blue, and I guess that's what everybody else is trying to figure out, why it was all of a sudden. So I don't know, was it just jumping out while things were running hot and good? But I don't know. It's like nobody knows of the details of that for sure.
I think before I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think too, I've talked to some people, and some people are concerned that something will come up in the who's the guy who's super gross? Harvey Weinstein.
Oh,
something will come up
because I'd be specific.
Something will come up in the Harvey Weinstein about Bob Iger, and it will ruin things, and he wants to distance himself from Disney while he still can. So that's a prominent theory. So
that actually makes a lot of sense. So,
do you have any other thoughts about that?
Again, I don't have enough background information to have any real stake. All I can see is that it seems like Chapek's background is in like specifically brand management and a lot of businessy business stuff, not necessarily on a creative level. So how he handles it, how well he's going to be able to let the right people handle the right jobs is part of being a boss, and whether he's able to do that properly, if he's going to look at long-term effectiveness and not just the quickest ways to get money. I mean, we're just going to have to see how that goes.
And it's as long as the shareholders are happy. So let's see where it goes. Yeah, because I mean, with Iger's legacy, he was all about really expanding the Disney corporation and obviously buying up all of these brands and all of these companies to further expand. Eisner was to bring more of a family-oriented vibe to parks and to entertainment in general for the Disney company, was to make it more of a family affair rather than cartoons are for little kids, or some of the park rides are just for little kids and the adults aren't going to have any more of that fun. Like, again, he looked at his at the time when he stepped in as CEO, Eisner looked to his teenage son being like, hey, what's cool? Tell me what's cool. He took him through the park, and his son was like, that's cool. That's not. We need to have more of this. We need to have more of that. Like, at the time, that was in the 1980s, when you were getting properties like, obviously Star Wars was already out, and then you had Indiana Jones. And this is the reason why the parks are so much more diverse now, because of all of that intermingling that Eisner started. And then Iger continued by buying up more of the properties that you now see are being dispersed throughout the parks and throughout the movies and throughout television. So, so we'll see where Chapek takes it. To your point, Sal, it might be like might be like Eisner 2.0 or anything like that. We don't know. It's too early to tell. And not a whole lot of people know about him in a spotlight aspect. So we'll see where things go.
I just hope Bob Iger didn't put his dick in something he wasn't supposed to. Can we stop doing that, guys? Like.
Yeah. So I think what happened with Iger suddenly stepping down, personally, I think it's more like going out on a high note versus Eisner, who unfortunately went out on not exactly a high note. Yeah. He did a lot of great for the company, but the thing is, and it's like love him or hate him, you can't deny that the company would not be the same without his influence, and Iger wanted to continue that in his own respect. So, I mean, I think, though, at the same time, he didn't want to be like his predecessor in that to go down in flames, unfortunately.
Being forced out of the company, that's always fun.
Yeah, so I think what he did, I guess, the honorable thing is to step down while it's still good and let somebody else who has also been there a long time to take over. So
I know Eisner did have to deal with a lot of money problems, and then some he was okay with, and then others he made worse. So, and at this point, I hope it's not a thing where like Iger saw a drop coming and bailed out right before it happened. So,
yeah, and to be fair, I watched all of the Disney Plus Imagineering documentary, and they interviewed Michael Eisner, like old Michael Eisner, as part of the documentary. And I think his biggest claim to fame is the fact that he made Disney as a company financially stable, where money wasn't really an issue anymore, which is, I think, affected a lot of, affect a lot of Disney's creative decisions going forward, whether good or bad. Yeah. Did we need a Country Bears movie?
I actually kind of thought, like, in hindsight, it's actually funnier than I think. As a kid, I didn't find it as amusing, but there's actually a lot of adult jokes in Country Bears, and it's just so bizarre. You kind of can't help but...
Don't make me watch Country Bears, okay?
You'll watch it and you'll like it! But, no, but yeah, with, like, hey, we wouldn't have had Pirates of the Caribbean without Country Bears starting that whole trend of turning the rides into movies. So, you gotta start somewhere, I guess.
Pros and cons.
Well, no, they started making that before Country Bears was open. Pirates of the Caribbean was being made before it was released, so it's not necessarily that, but...
Yeah, because I remember they did have, like, the Tower of Terror movie. It was like Wasn't it like a made-for-TV movie? Something like that.
No, Country Bears was released in theaters.
No, I know. I'm talking about before that. In the 90s, there was a Tower of Terror movie.
Yeah, I remember that. They still, well, granted, now it's different. They still have footage from that movie that play during when you're in the elevator with those actors, and it's like, that's from the TV movie. Why is it here?
Was that like a decom?
Yeah, I think so. No.
Oh god.
If it was a Disney Channel original, I feel like it would have. I looked at the list recently. I don't think it was on there. I think it was just VHS.
But either way, that you're right. That was before that. But I mean, in terms of being theatrically released, I think Country Bears was like the first.
I forgot that Country Bears was theatrically released. Like, good god.
Did I see it in theaters?
I know,
I
it's
think
so
I
embarrassing,
did.
right?
But thank goodness we got Pirates after that, so. And then we got Haunted Mansion after that, and yeah, can we get a do-over on that one?
They're trying to, but they just...
I keep on hearing that they are, and that's the thing about movie news. You always hear that everything is technically being made. It's just a matter of whether it is.
Yeah, so it's just like we were supposed to get we were supposed to get a Wicked movie, but we got Cats. Thanks, Universal.
Good call. Such a good call.
Yeah, who's in charge of these decisions, man? I guess we can just jump into it whatever. We'll just jump into it. So Onward just came out in theaters this weekend, and we all saw it at like around the time it came out because we have no life. So we're gonna talk about it, I guess. I wore my Forky shirt.
And I cosplayed as Ian Lightfoot, so...
Which means that you wore jeans and a flannel shirt, right?
Yes, and Converse, that I just so happened to have.
Yeah, she was
That is going to be the most popular Disney-bound outfit at the parks for a while.
And then but to make myself different, I do have a couple other Pixar pins. I have more at home, and I could only fit Edna and Dory on here.
What does your Edna one say?
It's my way or the runway.
Oh, that's nice.
Because then I have an Incredicoaster one from California Adventure, and then the Up House with the little balloons that are like beads. So it's like a 2-pin backer one, so it's a big pin. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I had an incredible shirt, but then I needed to get food and my car is broken, so I did adult thing and ordered stuff on Walmart.com, and they were like, you know you can get free shipping if you buy a $10 thing. And I'm like, well, I do like Forky, even though we've already discussed my mixed feelings about Toy Story 4, but Forky is like one of my favorite parts, so I bought a Forky shirt.
I'm trash.
We are all trash.
Go ahead.
Nope, that was it. I'm done.
Okay. Okay, so how do we want to start? Do we want to start about our initial thoughts about the movie?
I think initial thoughts. Maybe even if you had any thoughts from before the movie, like you weren't sure, like were you sure what you were gonna expect? Okay,
I'll start. And for people who don't know, Onward is a Pixar movie that just came out. Pixar is an animation company. I hope you know that. You're watching an animation themed podcast, but some people are stupid. So Google some trailers for Onward, not Homeward. Onward.
Yeah, not the bootleg.
Not the bootleg. And, come back, and obviously this is not spoiler free. We're going to be discussing the movie in detail. Mm-hmm. Come back when you've seen it, or, I guess we can just do initial spoiler-free thoughts for the first, initial statement, and then we can break down to the spoiler stuff. But,
it's kind of hard to not talk about the movie.
We can't talk about the movie in detail if we don't spoil shit, so I'm sorry. That's how,
So if you're okay with spoilers, then just stick around. Otherwise, tune out. I don't know.
Probably listen to the next 5 minutes. But, so anyway, my initial thoughts about the movie were I was generally surprised because I was pleasantly surprised with the angle they were taking about, spending one day with the relative that you never got to know, or the relative who died tragically. And I always love those existential stories about, you need to find your purpose in life, or else, you're going to die one day. And Soul has more of that, but this also had some of that too.
Yeah.
So, and I was surprised how tight the script was. I thought it was going to be a little, the relationship obviously was about the brothers, and they had to really make that work and make it feel like they were both equal, I guess, like close, and they didn't realize how close they were to the end, and that kind of stuff. So what are your initial thoughts about the movie, or first thoughts?
Yeah, I guess before going, I tried to be pretty blind going into this movie because all I was going off of was maybe one trailer. I was trying to not look at a whole bunch of clips beforehand. And I mean, what I was anticipating was, yes, a fun fantasy romp that takes place in like a modern day fantasy civilization. It's where, but what I liked is that once I actually saw the movie, is that they carried forward the idea of there is magic that still exists in the world. It just seems people have forgotten it, left it to the wayside in the wake of modern technology.
Oh, the alicorns running around.
The alicorns running around as freaking garbage-eating trash panda animals. It's so funny. Especially when the parallel opens, the movie opens with an alicorn looking majestic and beautiful and just soaring through the sky, and then you just see this is what they've been reduced to.
Bronies in 2020 was the joke he kept on making.
Retirement was not kind to Celestia and Luna.
Oh, Lord.
But I really, what I loved was not only was it a heartfelt story focusing on these two brothers and their connection and establishing their history and their bond without having to be like heavy in the exposition. But it was, it was also just a whole lot of fun. It wasn't a heavy-handed story or anything like that. It was just, it was a lot more fun than it was. I feel like, when you have a movie out of Pixar, like The Good Dinosaur, that was not as, I watched that, not as many laughs coming out of me for that one. Way more dark and depressing. It was like Pixar doing Land Before Time, basically.
Yeah.
Except Land Before Time got more laughs out of me and more joy out of me.
That is totally true.
Yeah. It was, with Onward, it was a lot more fun and a lot more playing on the fantasy jokes. And if you're into D&D, into any of that kind of role play stuff, there's a lot of jokes in there for you. But even then, I feel like you can enjoy them, but at the same time, you don't have to be immersed in that stuff to laugh at the jokes. They obviously try to play up on it being,
general nerd culture,
Yeah. So that's what I really liked about it, is that they made it light on the humor without it having to be, oh, this is, and not, there weren't even any like fart jokes or poop jokes or anything like that. So,
yeah, that's
an improvement.
That's how far we've come in this society for now.
So there weren't any dabbing or flossing or anything like that either. So that was okay too. I mean, I let Sonic go with the flossing thing. I let it go because you know what? It wasn't a focal point. Let him go. But with Onward, it stayed modern without being too trendy. And it played up on the whole fantasy aspect really well in its jokes, and then the writing, to your point, was super tight. And like the jokes, for me, a lot of them landed. There wasn't really one that I was like, okay, that's it, that's enough. Move on to the next scene. They kept it pretty tight and kept the pace pretty fast, so it wasn't like it wasn't dwindling on any one moment for too long. It was all the dramatic moments. They were just right. The action scenes were great. I was actually going, oh my god, how are they gonna get out of this one? And especially because with magic involved, or at least with one of them trying to learn magic and master magic, you don't know how they're gonna actually get through that as the movie progresses until you finally get to the end. You realize, this is what they were learning all the time. Through this whole journey, this is what they were building up to.
Right.
But I love that I took away having a fun time with it rather than going, oh, this is going to be a depressing story about two boys who have no dad.
Yeah.
But it's like actually a fun story and very heartwarming and a great tale of two brothers. So.
Okay, I'm just gonna, before Cel talks, I'm gonna say, I'm like, Cel, what do you think? And Lauren's like, wait a minute.
But yeah,
I just thought it was funny.
But yeah, but with Cel, I want to hear your thoughts as well. What were your initial thoughts on the movie?
Just for initial thoughts, I know that in general, I think the enthusiasm level for this movie was a little bit lower than it has been for other movies, and a lot of that has been just on the basis that it just the advertising doesn't really go any further into kind of it's fantasy creatures but modern day, and oh my god, that their dad is only legs. It feels like the most of what we're getting in trailers is the gimmicky side of the premise. So that I got, but at the same time, because it's Pixar and because they're literally one of the only companies that really tackles like the subject of death in a real way, and like literally the entire concept is about bringing their dad who's dead back to life. So I had confidence that it was still going to pull off generally a heartwarming family love story, and that is what we got. So I was generally happy with it. I do think the beginning of it takes a little bit of time to kind of get going. There's reasons for that, part of which it's just kind of like that's actually a pretty common thing that happens in a lot of movies, is that it always takes a little bit of time for you to get past what the trailers have already spoiled for you.
Right, that's fair.
But in general, I always love stories about siblings. I think the brothers have a really great, interesting relationship. Well, that's actually one of the first things. It was initially a little bit work to get over, because the initial premise kind of looks like a lot of teen movies, especially in this way that it's the skinny shy kid and the bombastic big kid. So there's a little bit at the beginning where it's like you almost feel more like BFFs, because that's the kind of relationship your two character types have in literally every other teen movie. So it takes a little bit of extra effort to start to see them as brothers. But like I said, like after you get a little bit over that hump in the beginning, you really start to feel the family resemblance. The magic starts to kick in a lot more, and generally everything about the movie gets better as it goes on. And that ending is fantastic for a lot of reasons. And one reason is KP's right. The writing is really tight, because it's one of those movies where almost everything they say and everything that they learn and experience comes back at the end. So it feels very satisfying, and it feels like it has real good payoff. And so that just add this to another one of those fantasy series that has way better ending than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
All right, this is your last warning for spoilers. We're actually going to break down some of the plot elements and stuff. So, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it and come back. This recording won't be going anywhere unless we do a derp and delete it by accident, which hopefully won't. So anyway, does anyone want to get into some spoiler territory stuff? Like, did anyone have any thoughts about anything else to add? Do you think that kind of breaks down the story more often?
I really liked how it played up the hero's journey aspect, and how they broke it down for the modern day, and saying, oh, but this is still like how it was in the game and how it was according to legend, because the game was based on real legend down to the detail, based on history, the history of magic and the history of our world. So I like that they did actually play it out like a real D&D kind of fantasy adventure, and just like the different quests, the different side quests, the Manticore. I didn't know how I was gonna like the Manticore character, but the Manticore was actually really enjoyable, especially just her having the revelation of, what am I doing? How have I fallen this far from grace? Burn everything. It was just, I loved that whole scene, just literally burning down the equivalent of a Chuck E. Cheese to the ground. And it was great. But the whole journey of seeing these two brothers bond even closer, and it not only showing them how they get closer, but showing what they're further accentuating what they have established in their lifetime together. That I think was I think it was just so well done in even in like a fantasy aspect, because you have them bond. One is so into the fantasy and the magic, and the other is just kind of dismissive about it until he realizes it's almost like almost like a chosen one kind of thing, without it beating over the head. It's a chosen one. But to see he's kind of like been thrust into his destiny of basically being born attuned to magic.
It's also really good that he's the one that's gifted, while Barley is the one who knows about the magic. But a really great thing is that he's never jealous that it's his brother that he's the one who's the magic buff, but he never kind of drags his brother. He never like throws a fit about the fact of, why does my brother have this and I don't? It's like, that would have ruined the entire movie. if they had gone in that direction. It is so, and that aspect is and that becomes really like the and you can tell, especially because of the ending, that's the point of their whole relationship, is that he's incredibly nurturing. And that's a big reason why this sibling relationship is so incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I know it's like cutting straight to the end, but that ending was one of the most beautiful Pixar endings. And that's saying something, considering Pixar usually cuts some really fantastic endings that are like, how could they possibly top this?
I can see them actually like having like multiple possible endings. Like everyone going through, like having, okay, how does everybody think this should end? And there's multiple possibilities, and like, okay, which one is the most agonizing and bittersweet, but ultimately satisfying? Or not even really satisfying, but just that perfect balance between sad and a little bit challenging, and also.
And that was the thing, is like going into this movie, I got the premise. I got the fantasy thing, but I wasn't really sure. I knew there had to be some sort of bittersweet, satisfying ending, because they're not going to let the dad live, because, that's a slap in the face to everyone who's ever had a death.
Mm-hmm. You can't cheat your way out of the happy ending and saying, oh, he's here forever now. Like, no, come on. It's like, that would have been the most cop-out ending.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And it's like, for it to play out like real life is in terms of, you can't always get what you want, but in the end, what they needed was, especially for Barley, was closure.
Right.
And I think that was something that, because he had internalized that in the way he was nurturing and being more like a parent figure to Ian for so long, that it was just like, just seeing him get that moment with his dad, and just like Ian's going, I've had all this time, just like, I could have you have that one moment that you can have that time to say goodbye. You can have that one moment now. Take it. I'm giving it up for you to have that moment, because you've given up so much for me. So I think that was like, I think in terms of like a brother and brother relationship, I think theirs is almost like, in a way, it's like Nani and Lilo,
mm-hmm.
where you have the older sibling looking after the younger sibling, and with the older sibling having, not being that much older, but trying to like find their way in being without a parent, especially without a father, when you have two boys. When I know it's like kind of like in any culture, a lot of them, it's like you have sons that look up to the father, right, because they're trying to emulate their father. When there's no father, who's going to step up? Is that Barley had to be the man, right?
The horse guy, duh.
Huh?
The centaur, duh.
That laugh was the best. But to see that relationship, and to see Barley grow as well, and also for him to speak up about, what everybody perceived him as being, being a slacker and not amounting to anything. And it just for him to finally say, maybe trust me this one time. Maybe trust me. Maybe I'm not that crazy. Maybe just listen to me this one time, and I can prove to you I'm not that slacker. I'm not that somebody you can doubt. I like that he has that arch. It's not just about Ian coming into his own and being a stronger person, but it's also Barley having
they're
that.
both character developing off of each other,
mm-hmm.
instead of just one person benefiting from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's one of those aspects that I think I get what it means in terms of theme. It's one of the things that it's like, no, let's not do the logical thing. Let's do this because that's how my card game works. And the fact and historically accurate collectible card games, because that's a thing that exists. It totally makes sense in terms of theme. I totally know what they're going on, but it's just this aspect of, no, don't do the rational thing. Just follow your gut.
Right.
Yeah. I think, in any other context, I can see how, that is going wrong, but there's also the connotation that, Barley is the bigger, the Chris Pratt one, wants to feel like he has meaning, and like the only way he can do that is, by showing he has worth by like proving something on this quest. Because there's hints about like the layout of the movie is like Ian's still in high school, Barley's just like some dude who, like, there's the college sweatshirt where they talk about their dad, and like Ian wears it, and they talk about the dad in college, and like they never address it directly, but there's the connotation that Barley didn't go to college and he's just kind of living at home still, and he's trying to figure himself out. And he has this like hippie car, which is
they say gap year. They say gap year, so there's not.
Okay, they do say gap year.
We're not 100% sure if it's that he can't go to college or if it's just that it's suggesting that he could. He's just not right now. It's hard to know because we don't know a whole lot of details about the situation. We just know that he's just very into this completely, totally historically accurate card game. It's more of a matter of him trying to prove that it matters, and he's not wrong. It's like the entire basis is that I know exactly what they're trying to do with that whole thing. Is that the insinuation is that and even what I was saying earlier, that it takes a while. The beginning of the movie feels like it takes a while to get going, but I also feel like to a little bit that's deliberate, because when you first meet the movie, the world is kind of boring. It's almost too normal. It's just basically our world, but with a couple of there's just a couple of Tolkien-esque architecture touches. It's not really that different, and like I said, it kind of feels like a normal teen movie, but that's also kind of the point, because it's the idea that we've lost our roots. We don't have our magic anymore because we become so adept at our modern conveniences. And if we just and his whole aspect of not, wanting to take the express A is deliberately not to take the easy way. Sometimes you need to take the adventurous hard way and put in a little bit of effort to get a real adventure instead of always doing the easy thing. So again, I totally get where they were going with that, and I appreciate that. It's sometimes when you think about it in terms of I get why you stopped being the Manticore. It's dangerous, and magic is dangerous. It's not when you peel it apart, but at the same time, the theme is still relevant, and again, just put in a little bit of the effort, and magic can be a thing. So.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting them in some ways to fix the world and have this message about somewhere in the theme of the movie, which happened, but it happened on a smaller scale, where they were just stop being so reliant on your modern conveniences. Everyone has magic in them inside. So I'm glad, but that wouldn't have fit for what the story was telling. So I'm glad they kind of kept it on the small scale. Manticore and centaurs going out, and people are somewhat aware of their potential, but
yeah, it's not too in your face. It's just there enough,
because that's a side theme to the main theme about brotherly love and shit. So I'm
right.
glad it wasn't beaten down to you as far as stop being a lazy asshole, you damn Americans.
Right, it's evident, but it's not preachy. So that was all it's a very like I said, it's a very delicate touch of what they're doing with the script. That was one bit that I thought was in terms of the ending magic fight. I just think it's really funny. It's funny. The magic fight is amazing, and exactly for that reason, I think it's funny, because I think about the Harry Potter movies and how for 8 movies, magic in the Harry Potter world is actually really boring. When it's not incredibly mechanical, combat magic in the Harry Potter universe is literally just adults with sticks shooting lights at each other, and that's it.
It is.
Magic is really boring. And in this one movie, he learns 6 or 7 different spells, and in that ending fight, he uses them all in really creative ways to make a really exciting fight. And I'm like, this is a better magic fight than we got in 8 movies of Harry Potter.
Yeah, my favorite joke when the 7th Harry Potter movie came out is all these wizards, no one has a fucking first aid kit, knows a healing spell, So
yeah, I'm that final boss battle scene was absolutely phenomenal, and how awesome and ridiculously funny it was.
That dragon face. That dragon face.
I'm they're
best joke out of the entire movie
for a reason. And I thought, it's inner strength, that kind of thing. It's going and channeling that, the powerful creature you are at your core, right? But no, it's a lead up to the boss that has that dinky dragon face.
I thought it was going to be something where the dragon lair was underneath the school or something like that. But I was wrong. This is fine. This is a fine way to be wrong.
And I love that they go on that whole journey only to end up back at the school. And it's like, I think that it was so funny because you have to consider when that journey probably had to be drafted out or whatever. If it's the hero's journey, it's been around for forever. Like, yeah, everything had to build up around on that land. So it's like, yeah, you could say, oh, it's almost like they were supposed to go through the trials as if they, they had to build up their relationship. It's almost like it was meant to be that or something. But then you just think about just the actual realistic aspect is just, it was, they literally only had to go a few feet. They could have had this whole thing solved. They just go to the Manticore and they're like, oh, you gotta go here. Okay, now we go back to the fountain. But it's like, no, of course, the hero's journey always has to be there.
They alluded to in the beginning.
Yeah, but that whole boss battle scene, and especially the mom actually being a part of that. She was actually a proactive character in this movie, and I love that they did that for her. Because that's Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
She's a Disney mom that not only doesn't die, but contributes. And actually heard this too, that it's nice that there's a step-parent that's not evil.
Oh, he's funny too. I actually like him hanging around and just like the whole thing of the visual gag of him just, he's a centaur and just him having to try and figure out how to sit in a chair and move through a kitchen, and you just have this back end just swinging into everything. And it's just like, it's not played up like, oh, haha, like laugh at the centaur. And it's funny because you have to think, yeah, they're not centaurs. Their house is not built for that, but they're accommodating to him anyway because they're trying to with a house that wasn't built for a centaur to walk through. So it's like the John Mulaney joke of the horse in a hospital. It's a centaur in an elf's house.
That must be some awkward sex that they have.
Oh my god, please.
Well, it's not just that. It's kind of back what I was considering about how the world feels boring, is that I remember thinking like, hey, remember Zootopia and the fact that how interestingly designed it was, because it's a city that's designed to accommodate creatures of varying types and sizes, and how this is literally a world that has creatures of all varying shapes and sizes, all the way down to like the pixies, and how there doesn't seem to be any part of like the architecture or design that accommodates for them. I mean, maybe that's part of like the social thing. It's like, yeah, you have to be this size. We're not going to accommodate you because racism or whatever. But I don't know if it's just because it's either something that they just didn't think about, which I find a little hard to believe, or it's just because of the philosophy that I said earlier, that it was there to just make the world seem as normal and boring and non-fantastical as possible, so it seems more fantastic when the magic comes later.
I think maybe the reason why they kept things simple is that they did, like, if they separated it, they would have this racial undertone, I think. And, the story wasn't about that. It was about the two brothers reconnecting and shit. So, people would, even if people weren't, that was the focus, people would think it's like, oh, why are the centaurs in this area? Why are the wizards, or why are the elves in this area? Like, do they, and
I didn't expect them to do that. I just wondered if at all they were going to have, like, even the fact that in the classrooms they don't have chairs of varying sizes. It's just like, I just find that weird.
Yeah, they should have just thrown in some like centaur chairs or something just for the sake of it.
Yeah,
but
I do agree with your point, Sal, about it could potentially be that, yeah, again, it's a world that's so normal and so unaccommodating that it's trying to be. It's like, this is for everyone. I mean, not really, but it's just trying to be.
And again, I don't think it's because they were trying to do anything with that. It's literally just so it looks normal as it physically can. And I get that. Just that was just one of the things that I was thinking,
And again, it's also, I just think that connects to the fact that, with every creature that's there forgetting their roots and not, and like, hey, at one point centaurs could run up to 70 miles an hour. Like, the fact that they're all forgetting who they are. The fairies forgot, the pixies forgot that they could fly. They have wings and they forgot they could fly. So I think actually that does all play into, the world being so normal that, people forget their core, where they came from. They forget who they are because they're just all in this world that they're with all of these commodities and stuff that takes away almost just that aspect of themselves that makes them all unique. So
it's like, I don't know. I just like they had they had to kind of balance it and had to make it about the brothers and not repeat things like, don't get like too fed up in modern conveniences, Wally, the Zootopia racism stuff. So like they kind of painted themselves in this corner where they had to make the focus about the relationship with the brothers, or else they maybe that was something they kept in mind for development.
No, yeah, no, they like I said, it's kind of, there's a phrase on just knowing where your story's emphasis is, and that's what they were focusing on. I actually kind of felt that way about the dad too, is that the fact that the dad is there and he's technically there, and there's like the moment where he appears and they still try to have like a real connection with what is a pair of legs, and how effective they're able to do that, because Pixar is Pixar and they're really good at that kind of subtle character animation that's really impactful. But then for like the rest of the movie, you'd think that they'd like try a little harder to find ways to communicate with the dad that they have on the way there, and they have little bits of that, like they have the dancing scene, but they don't focus on the dad that much because it is about the brothers. And that was one of the things that I was wondering in the middle the first time I saw it, and but then we got to the end, it's like, I see what you were doing. I see what you were doing. But it's still really impressive the way that the dad is literally just a pair of legs, and how much personality they were still able to put into his character when just literally half of him is there. And I also thought, like, gee, it sure is lucky that like the two memories that people have of him involve the area around his feet. Boy, that worked out.
I did love the whole, just again with the subtleties in the animation of the dad's legs. You could totally read with what the emotions were running through the legs without having to have a face there, and I think that's what makes exceptionally powerful character animation, character performance. The whole thing with the drumming on the foot and him recognizing, yeah, that's Barley, and the moment he's immediately stepping over, you see him, he's like, wait, that means Ian's here. Like, you can see him,
and you can tell that that's what's going through his mind too. That's why it's so great.
The dancing, and his dancing was great. I love, they're like, wow, that's terrible. Wow, he's just bad. But then they're having fun with it anyway, just showing that, he's just like...
He's very dad. You can tell how much of a dad he is.
Yeah.
And if you think about it this way, like when the dad was alive, Varley was like a little child, so the feet thing probably worked better in that sense, because he was, he probably, that's how we could reach him, he wasn't as big as he was in the movie, obviously, because he wasn't as old. So
yeah, so it'd be like a kid playing with your feet. Yeah, it's literally, they could sit on the ground, they play with whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, it seemed like a very believable thing to play into, because when they keep establishing through the photos and seeing how young, how young Barley was, just when the dad passed away, and then you see Ian's there, right? So it's just like, establish how little he actually was, and so he would very much be doing that, and so I like that they kept that grounded in the connection of being like, this is what I remember of you. I was little, but this is what I remember, and then the dad just cementing that with, I remember too.
I'll say one thing before we jump back, but I liked how they emphasized that in the conversation between Ian and the mother character. What's her name? Just okay, whatever. The Ian and the mother character, that they have a conversation about like, your dad really wanted to meet you and he fought so hard, but it still didn't happen. As in, like, I was waiting for it to be like, oh, it's, dad didn't love me enough, that's why he didn't fight, or whatever the hell. But I'm really glad they addressed that in a healthy way, just saying, he's still...
What kind of child would think dad didn't love me enough to not die?
Right, I don't know.
Why would he think that? That's literally, like, what was it? Oh my god, that was literally the thing. I'm remembering now that was the ending of the Little Princess movie that I did the riff review of. Was that the ending of it was like he was literally dying, and then the very last scene he's fine, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine because now I have something to live for. And it's like, hear that kids? If your parents still die, despite the fact that they say still die, it means they didn't love you enough to keep themselves alive.
Yeah, so I was just afraid that not that they would do a bad job with it, but the interpretation wouldn't be clear, where it was just like, oh, he just didn't love you enough to survive. It was just, that's just like, I'm glad they addressed that pretty early on in the movie, so we had that clear. So,
and I like that even when they're trying to figure out the magic, and that they're trying to, like, Barley's trying to figure out the staff and stuff, and just the mom going, the fact that your father even thought of this and was fighting so hard to wanting to live to meet Ian and to see both of you grow up, the fact that he did even this shows you how much he cared and how much he loved you. And so I think what was nice is that they even tried to do that, and as much as Ian was still sad about it, it was just more like, yeah, he had to like think like, yeah, at least he did think of it. So
bonus, the mom wasn't selfish at all, and she was just like, let them have their moment,
Mm-hmm.
So it was her husband too,
Mm-hmm.
Right, but also because it's easy to tell that because it is a family movie and it is about the son's relationship with their father, that they would mostly focus on that viewpoint. I do. That is something that I kind of wish that more movies did, was that they emphasize, like, it's not just about the kid's relationship to the parents, it's the parents' relationship to each other. That only tends to get brought up if they're divorced. But at the same time, the mom also had her own thing going on. Mom had the road trip with the Manticore, which was awesome. They had a lot of fun together on that road.
The pawn shop scene was fun. Like, I like how I made a joke to Lauren about, like, how, like, Onward 2 is going to be, like, them facing the police files against them between everything, like running against all the police officers and looting and, like, all the spells for the lying, and then the Manticore stings the pawn shop owner, and, like, it's just a bunch of, like, shit that happens that, is not probably legal, but it doesn't matter. They're helping see their dad for the last time, I guess, so, but it's fine.
Given what they experienced at the end of the day with the dragon coming forth from the curse and everything.
Property damage, what is that? It's fine.
I think it's like, though, I think they figure at that point, we've seen enough weird shit. I don't know how to process this. We'll work this out later.
Yeah,
well, like, how are you even going to explain that, especially when you're in a hurry? So I totally get that. What else, Tiffany's? Oh, I remember the imagery when he sacrifices his van. It's like the music that plays, and the fact that the parking tickets are flying out of the windows to make wings, and the car and the spare tire busts, and it sounds like hooves. It's like, oh my god.
It was a bittersweet send off to Guinevere. It was just like, I'm like, if there's any one way for that van to go out, just do it like that. To go out like the freaking magnificent flying steed she is.
Yeah, my favorite thing is every time they zoomed in on the van, they had a horse sound effect. They had a neigh sound effect. It was just like, geez.
Way to go, Guinevere. Like, it was wonderful. I loved it. That the van itself had a personality. So
I don't know. Any other scenes or points you guys want to highlight before you're out?
Trying to think. We covered a lot of the major ones. Were there?
Well, we can talk about the big gay controversial character that wasn't really a big deal.
Yeah, the 0.5 seconds that the line was said, and then that banned the movie. No, it didn't just censor it. Got the movie banned in a few countries for a one line. That's a throwaway line.
Yeah, and it's not that big of a deal. I don't get it.
It's just literally, my girlfriend says this all the time. I'm like, that's the one line. That's it, guys.
That's how far behind a lot of those other countries are. And it's one of those, I'd have to take a look at the countries, and I wonder, like, how much does it... That's always the thing that I wonder, like, how much Disney is calculating. It's like, I know that Disney probably knows for mainstream films that even just that one line would have given them, like, some sort of impact. I mean, from what I hear, I don't know specifically what happened with the Star Wars scene. I mean, I know that they did the lesbian kiss at the very end, but they compacted it to just that moment, so it was easily cut out for international distribution.
Yeah, that is what they did.
But I don't know if it was banned because of that. as opposed to this, because it was a line of dialogue, even though it theoretically could have been changed, that there were some countries that still chose to ban it. And at least, and
I was just gonna say it was a little bit of a mix. Some countries were the line was redubbed, and then other countries the movie was outright banned for Onward. So like Saudi Arabia, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries were banned.
Mm-hmm.
So they changed the line from girlfriend to partner in the countries that were like somewhat more receptive to the censored version, I guess. So we'll get there eventually. We're just like the song says, we're just waiting on the world to change.
We can't control what other countries do. That's
Yeah.
part of the entire thing. What kind of people have been wanting is for Disney to take a stand on some level, and even this, which is like literally the minimal they could have done, is still technically more than what they've done before. I mean, we remember when LeFou came out and how they technically advertised him like he was gay, but he really wasn't, or it was so thin, and the fact that this time, at least this time it's undeniable, which is at least something. And again, it's incredibly minimal. There's some amount that I know that Disney's calculating in terms of like what it stands to lose or gain by whatever, and at least in this case, it's there. But at the same time, people are also aware that how much Disney, because with Disney, I'd have to look at how much Disney itself is pushing it to make it seem like Disney really wants that LGBT cred, while doing as little work for it as possible. But the ban does show that there were consequences for that decision.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta sell the rainbow Mickey hats, right?
We do, yeah. But at least now and I know that they've done little bits before, like they do have Andy Mack, which I think is the only like official thing that Disney as a brand has ever done before that isn't technical. There's always like those, again, between LeFou and the fact that those two roommates in Zootopia technically have the same last name, so that's there. And the fact that Elsa has all of this coding around her, but which is all very subtext interpretive, but is that are just in this point where they're still deciding whether or not to make that official. But this is something that is out there. It's incredibly small, and it's definitely something that's not, just in terms of what other shows have been able to do, is something that doesn't really give them like points. We're at a point where it doesn't need to necessarily be made a big deal out of, but at the same time, because it's Disney and they are so big, the fact that it's the first time they're that open is something. It's not a lot, but it's something.
It's steps forward. So I mean, it's, even if it's a baby step, it's a step forward. So it's
right.
And it's kind of funny though. I read it. I want to make sure I verify it before I go saying it's official. Apparently Disney Plus was slated to have a 6-episode musical mini series centered, basically a spinoff centered around Gaston and LeFou before the events of Beauty and the Beast.
That's correct.
And for it to have Luke Evans and Josh Gad, so they're reprising their roles from the live-action Beauty and the Beast.
Because that's the content we wanted on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So I mean, and everyone's like, "Who even asked for this?" But you know what? I'm like, it's Disney Plus. They're gonna try a whole bunch of different shows on there, a whole bunch of different content. It's the platform for them to try it without having it be sent to theaters and risk what just happened with Onward. So I guess it's more or less that.
It's a soft
opening.
Yeah. That's
kind of what it is testing the waters. So
we'll get there eventually.
Right. And then there's the whole thing about Love, Simon being originally for Disney Plus and it's not anymore. Now it's for Hulu, and the natural response that came to that.
I mean, they're already starting to censor a little bit of Disney Plus stuff because, and I guess I get it because, as much as Disney doesn't want to isolate anyone, and people aren't as open-minded as other people would like them to be. So even if it's like legal in all 50 states and all that good stuff for an international market, it's just harder to please everyone. But I'm glad we're getting somewhere, and for better than nothing.
Yeah, it's because Disney absolutely needed to buy all of those other companies. So now, in order to make enough money for it to be able to keep standing, it now needs money from absolutely everybody. Because they really needed to buy Fox. I don't know what they were thinking, but...
Well, let's talk about that. Did you guys like the fact that there was a original Simpsons short in the beginning of this versus like something totally original? I was surprised that they did that.
I think it was. I personally thought it was better than most of the episodes that come out nowadays, and I think it was because they wanted to try a simpler story, again, one that could be really condensed into a short film. Like Maggie. This isn't the first time they've used Maggie in a short film either, but it is the first time they've done it before a Disney movie. It was an interesting direction to take, but I still enjoyed it, and actually what I liked is that it felt more like a classic Simpsons style episode in the way they wrote and the gags, and they didn't have to depend on any. But I like with Maggie, you don't have to depend on dialogue.
Right. I mean, the episode itself didn't have any dialogue. I don't remember, but it also did feel like well, we own The Simpsons now, like, bragging kind of vibe to it too a little bit in the beginning. So I don't know what they want to do with The Simpsons going further, because it's kind of, I think it's kind of run into the ground. I'm hoping that Disney tries.
I'm hoping that they'll finally end it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like the only reason, the adult cartoons on Fox are technically still getting decent ratings, which is the reason why it's still gone. And I know that it's not culturally relevant anymore, but if everyone who's working on it is still technically getting paid enough, and they don't see a reason to end it, and it feels like at this point, if they will end it, it needs to be big enough. I hope they just finally pull the plug just for the sake of it ending. I think that the Maggie short existed. It was a good short, but I would take a regular Pixar short, but that existed.
I think, at least in terms of now that this is a reality of a Simpsons short preceding a Pixar movie, in terms of what we got,
Welcome to the future.
I know. In terms of what we got, though, I feel like I look at it as the way I look at like how they've handled, which is funny enough that Disney owns them now too, is the Ice Age movies. How I would have loved for them to carry forward is that we didn't need a million sequels for Ice Age. Like, there are some, like, a few good aspects to them, but overall they're not necessary. And so
right, I just didn't even bother after the first one.
But with the short films, which they used with Scrat to basically segue into promoting an upcoming movie. Anytime a Scrat short came out, it was to basically promote / hint at the following movie to come.
Right.
So, but what I like them on their own, because Scrat's very comical, Looney Tunes style
very
visual
silent
gags.
film kind of.
Yeah, like it's just manic Looney
Tunes
Tunes style, crazy physical comedy.
And I feel like there were a couple of Scratch shorts that were on their own, and you're right, they were fine. They were
give us
they
a
were
second, Cell.
their original Looney Tunes.
Yeah, pardon us for a second. The lights went off in our room here, and she just knocked into her mic.
Fine.
So, yeah, hold on a sec here.
It won't go back on, so I guess we're doing another audio recording.
So I guess from this point onward, this is segue into the name.
Got it.
Did we get some light?
Got one light.
One light. Yeah, so I guess.
I think someone complained that we were in the community center this late, and they're just like, turn the fucking lights off.
But it's not even midnight. It's Saturday
open,
night.
Yeah, it's open till midnight, so fuck you. Okay. Give me another second.
Sorry about this, Sal.
These lights aren't.
No, don't worry about it. You worry about your thing.
No, they won't turn on. This is the best we got.
Okay, so if we have to, we may just carry on with from this point on, where we may just have
It's fine. It's outside our control.
It's fine. Everything's fine. It's all fine.
This is like we'll do the camera stuff and just like freaking night vision now.
Yeah. But sorry to go back to you, Sal. We want to hear what you just said. But if you could repeat that.
The thing.
I don't remember what I was saying. What were we talking about? I don't know. We were talking about Simpsons. They exist.
Ah, yes. Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, in terms of like the like when you look at like the Ice Age Scrat shorts, like they existed only to really segue into sequels. With the Maggie shorts, I feel like it's, yeah, sure, they're promoting the show right now, but as I see it, I would love to have just shorts of The Simpsons like that. Like, literally just do it like they do with the Maggie shorts and just keep it at that, because then
kill it and then just do because I think from the shorts, it's just weird because I'm looking at the black screen, but I think what they're trying to, with the Maggie shirts, what they were trying to do is rebrand The Simpsons back to its glory. Trying to do a rebrand real quick, and if that doesn't work, they'll end the show. But we'll see. I think it's too late personally, but I've been surprised before.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I feel like just for the sake of not having everything being thrown into chaos, that they're still keeping the original people who were working on it are probably still working on it. It was more just there to remind people that, hey, it's ours now. In case you didn't know, here it is in front of a Disney film. I
thought it was funny how they did the or it very much looked like the opening to a Mickey Mouse cartoon, and then they light up the silhouette and it's Homer with 2 donuts.
Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm like, you know what? Okay, I can't help but laugh at that.
Yeah, that's why I said I feel like in some ways it was kind of a bragging kind of like, look at us, it's ours now. We're gonna put it in front of a Pixar movie so people will see it. So I don't know. There was some of that.
Either way, it was nice because it was silent. It meant they actually had to focus on animation instead of all of their not terribly great dialogue.
Yeah, because I feel like especially when you look back at classic Simpsons, the writing for me is what really sold the show.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, I personally think seasons 1 through 7 had the best writing, because there was always something new to talk about. They hadn't retread over old ground yet.
Yeah.
So it was like they had fresh stuff to talk about, and different scenarios that they could have the characters go through. And now it feels like there were episodes where they literally said, "Haven't we done this already?" And I'm like, at this point, it's almost like, yeah, if you're gonna tread over old ground, at least do something different with it, instead of recycling a story.
When do you think SpongeBob will reach that point? If it hasn't already.
SpongeBob has already reached and catapulted off of that point. I honestly haven't watched SpongeBob in a while, so I can't say that for sure. But I remember seeing a couple of scenarios, and it's like, that looks kind of familiar. Just now, it's way more extreme and gross.
You're breaking up badly, so we're gonna just pretend we heard what you said. Yeah, so that's a good point.
Yeah, yeah, you're breaking up a little bit too.
Okay, I might try to recall you. But I was just gonna say, Lauren, you're excited about the new SpongeBob movie, right?
Yeah, well, that and Scoob. So I mean, it's and they're both coming out in May, so which is my birth month. So. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to me. Consume all the animation.
Yep.
So
it's mine too, so.
Woo!
So that'll be fun. So.
Yeah, you're a month older than I am. So, but anyway, yeah, I guess as far as, just that kind of stuff, we'll just see how it goes, and Scoob goes, and killing SpongeBob harder, and but any we're getting a little bit off track. So any final thoughts on Onward, ladies? That we haven't said? Does anyone want to go first and just repeat shit?
It's good. It's kind of as I expected. It's kind of middle Pixar. But that's still really good, especially when you compare it to everybody else.
I think for what it was as good as it could be. The concept and just the general, story about 2 brothers going on an adventure and finding themselves within it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for me, I think it was above middle Pixar for me. I think it was partially because just the way it was written and the way they handled that kind of a heavy story of, 2 brothers who want to see their father again. Mm-hmm. And one having never seen his father and then only listening to his voice on an old cassette tape
That's
and
sad.
seeing pictures of
That's
them.
sad and
That
real.
scene broke me a little
That's a
bit there.
great scene. Mhm. That's a great scene. See, that's the kind of stuff that only Pixar would do.
Mm-hmm. And it's him having the fake conversation with his father through the cassette tape. That just like I was sitting there just going, oh.
And that's so real too, because I know a lot of people who lost people that like will say the most random shit because that was the last thing that they said, or that's the last thing they have, you know?
Like voicemails.
Yeah,
Or
voicemails.
like I think there was like a story of an old it was like an old man who missed his wife's voice, and he
the
kept
Google
on,
ad for the Super Bowl.
Well, no, I'm talking about like an actual story of
Oh,
there was an
okay.
old man who he saved like all of these voicemails from his wife, and he kept her phone running so that he could call the number, and every time it would go to voicemail, and he would be a chance to hear her voice again.
Oh, that's fucking sad. No, I'm
Yeah,
sad.
we're not trying to end this on a sad note. I swear to God.
It's a good heartwarming
Well,
movie.
it should, because it's a sad movie.
Yeah.
If you've had a loss of a loved one, especially in the last probably 5 years, this movie will probably hit you a little hard. So
Yeah, and it doesn't
I
even
bet-
have to be death. It could it could be in any form, just loss of any form.
Yeah.
And then so but yeah, I thought it was certainly above middle Pixar, and maybe that's just me. But the writing for that and the way they handled it, I think that it was certainly like in terms of ranking all of these Pixar movies, like Ratatouille is at my number one. So
really,
yeah, Ratatouille. Well, I mean, it's because I think, especially as a creative, it just is
okay.
just,
So that's more of a
Right.
part of a personal preference.
yeah.
It's
And
into-
so because also Brad Bird, anytime he has the reins on a Pixar movie, to me,
I know.
Yeah.
it's like having The Incredibles. You know, The Incredibles.
It's
is up there,
really
too.
great.
when Sel and I are working on the Pixar script, or we're done with it at this point, or for the most part it's in post, and like Ratatouille was actually higher, and I had to tell her to move it down a little bit because I thought the third act was kind of like weak compared to it. Like I like the message and I like Ratatouille as a whole, but compared to, I don't think it was like number one. So you know, but that's just me being grumpy. So
Also having personal.
It was not at number one, by the way. It was probably like 4.
yeah, it was still high, and I was
It was like right under Incredibles. So
Yeah, it's a personal
Um,
thing for me. Again, personal preference that Ratatouille is my number one, and I guess it's just because I've always associated it with like the struggle of being a creative
Yeah.
person. And
I think that it's a good movie with that, and like how it's so much harder to put yourself out there compared to some people who aren't like everyone in the comment section of YouTube, essentially.
yeah, and then it's just and the way that was written. But yeah, for Onward, it's ranking it's definitely above middle Pixar for me, and I think over time it'll even climb even higher because I could see this and as something I could continue to rewatch. With like Good Dinosaur, I saw it once and that was enough for me. I didn't need to revisit it. I thought the only funny thing out of that movie was the T-Rex cowboys and Sam Elliott being unintelligible, and then just playing off of that. Like that was about it. That saved the movie. Like that, well, it didn't even save the movie, but that was the one part that was decent to me. And with like Brave, the first 20 minutes I was hooked, and then it lost me for the rest of the movie stealing from Brother Bear. So I mean, it's just
pretty
like,
much. And again, I say middle, that's not at all a bad thing, just because Pixar literally has done so much amazing things. That's not a slight. It's just how it is. And maybe because I'm a little bit older, I've seen some of those things done before. And that's always kind of a thing. And I actually hate always feeling like I have to say that. It's just that it's true. It's like, I've seen this, and I've seen it done better. Sorry, but it's true. But no, I think what it did really well, what it was trying to do. It is a good movie. I feel like because of the low enthusiasm with the trailers, it may not make as much money as they want it to, and I really want people to go see this and give it money, or else we're going to get more sequels.
Well, we got Soul coming out too, which is not a sequel.
We do have Soul, and I'm really looking forward to Soul. I have a lot of higher hopes for Soul, despite still not really knowing what it's gonna be. I really hope that delivers, and I'm fairly confident it will. Just in terms of, I guess in terms, there's still a lot of movies coming out this year that we don't have trailers for yet, and I feel like Onward's in a top movies that will get nominated for various things. Onward will definitely get nominated for something along with Soul, and I have no idea what's gonna go on with Raya. I have no idea. I don't really see a whole lot of things being made by other companies that's really aiming for like something higher or significant. Maybe I'm just not remembering something right now. I mean, the other thing coming out, we have Trolls, and we have SpongeBob, and we have Scooby, and we have Connected, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, Connected. The trailer dropped for that within the past week, and dang, that I almost forgot that was something we could talk about. It happened so quickly. But yeah, that's probably, we could probably discuss that in the next one.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at Connected. Looks pretty good right now.
Yeah,
we'll discuss that later.
Yeah, but yeah, to finish off, I do like how Pixar, with their trailers, they try to keep it as hidden as possible.
Yep, I always appreciate that. I already feel like I've seen half of Connected.
Yeah, but then you have something like Soul, and you still don't know entirely what you're getting yourself into. I like they keep it pretty cryptic without it being like, you know, you're going, oh, is he dead? Is his soul, like, what's happening there? There's hints of something going on. Where is he in the hospital and he's just in a coma or whatever? So It's like, so there's all of this speculation, and I like that every trailer they've ever done, it does that. They always want to have people asking for more rather than handing them everything.
Right. And like what I was just gonna say is like,
and even then it feels like Onward gave us a lot, but it still kept a lot of its stuff in the dark. But also Pixar's reputation sells Pixar to a point. Obviously not for Good Dinosaur or Cars 3, but they know that their own brand can sell themselves. And right now Sony's really happy that it can go from the studio that brought you Spider-Verse. They're really happy that they can do that, but that's still not enough to really sell people. So they still need trailers that can really hook people. And well, I will say that Connected looks nice. I don't know how well it's going to go. I feel like it's going to be funny because it's got Lord and Miller. It's got the Spider-Verse producers on it. So sorry, I won't. You guys, you're going to talk about that later. So
yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it at like, it's like making good movies actually makes money or something like that. Imagine that.
It's weird. If you let funny people be funny, they'll make more stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I want my phone high, damn it.
What?
All right, I think we can wrap. So thank you, Cel, for joining us in this chaos, this organized chaos. We started a little late because the mics, we had some technical issues, but not as many as I thought there would be. And if you guys like, I guess we can plug the Pixar collab real quick. So me and Cel are doing like a huge Pixar collab, including Onward, that is almost done being edited of this recording, that you guys should watch and go subscribe to both of us because we both work really hard over it. I think the script's like 9 or 10 pages or something like that.
That's heavy.
It was Oh, and even that's not even a lot because we only had like a paragraph or two for each movie. So it felt like a lot, even though we went through them pretty fast.
Because what is it, 20? It's 20. It's over 20 movies, so it's a lot.
So, but I'm really happy about how that's turning out, and I'm glad that Cel wanted to do it with me because I think she's a good person to bounce shit off of as far as, you know, like what's working in the industry and stuff like that. So she's a good bean. So yay. Go see us at Phoenix, I guess, if it's not canceled by the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully not.
I mean, I'm thinking.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's far enough in advance that we should be fine, knocking on wood. But you know, I feel like they just have too much going on that they won't cancel. You know, they just like 100K people is just like, that's not a baby con.
No.
So
not by any means.
All right. Any last words, Lauren? Like,
go see Onward, please. Like, go support it. It's actually a genuinely great movie. It's a lot of fun. Please go see it. Go support it. Don't make it have a horrible opening weekend domestically.
Now that I don't know. I mean, I just thinking when I was looking at my theaters, I didn't necessarily see a lot of theaters near me being sold out or anything. So I'm hoping that it was everywhere else. So
it wasn't too bad where we went, but we're in the animation capital of the world, so we don't have a biased. We have kind of a biased count as far as that. But anyway, Yeah, and in case you're new or whatever, we do this podcast every week. Ideally, every Wednesday you get 6 a.m. Eastern. You get the SoundCloud version, the Spotify version, and then the YouTube version with extra stuff is uploaded at 4. So we attempted to do this with a camera because Lauren and I are physically in the same place, but then the power went out. So it might just be audio. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, well, at least it'll
Not
be
the
mostly
power,
video.
but the lights. The lights went out.
Yeah, mostly video until a certain point where the lights go out.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again, Cell, for staying up late to join us.
Yes, it is much later here than it is where you are.
Saturday night has been lit.
We partied hard tonight, right?
Air horn, air horn.
Okay, and so thanks everyone for listening to this episode of Animation Communication. We hope you see you next time, or you hear us next time, or whatever your senses are telling you. Okay, bye.
Bye, bye. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Communication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Communication.